When I talk to people and teach people about investing, the first thing I like to start with is the fact that investing is not a new skill. Ever since the times of ancient Babylon, the very beginning of money, property, ownership, and trade, there have been people who figured out the skills of investing and used these skills to grow their wealth and provide for their families and descendants. This has been true in every century throughout recorded history. So just like you would with any skill, you learn investing and wealth management through good, consistent practice. Times and circumstances may change, but the truth is that the fundamentals of good wealth management and accumulation are based on principles that transcend time. And so these are still true today. There are countless books that have been written on the subject of how to invest. I think you can take all the really good advice from these books, and they really boil down into these three critical principles. The first principle is to focus your efforts on buying assets that generate compounding returns. First, we should define assets. I like the simple definition given in the classic book Rich Dad Poor Dad. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. What this means is that any investment we make should be geared towards increasing our cash flow, not decreasing it. For instance, if you buy a house with a mortgage, it's generally a mistake to think of this as an investment asset, since if you're living in the house and not renting it, you won't be generating any cash flow. And in fact, the house will actually be taking money out of your pocket in the form of the monthly mortgage payment. So now we know assets should put money into our pocket. Let's now shift to how they do it. And what we want to look for here is the ability to generate compound returns. You may have heard about the concept of compound interest before. It was Albert Einstein that said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who does not pays it. As investors, we want to make sure we are on the earning side. Compound returns are defined as returns that increase along with the appreciation of the underlying asset. For example, if we own some Bitcoin and our investment goes up 20% the first year and then another 20% the next year, the result is more than a 40% return. This is because we earned that second 20% on the asset that had already appreciated. So if Bitcoin went from $10,000 to $12,000 in the first year, the next time it goes up 20%, we get to $14,400, and we've earned even more. Another way to maximize compound returns is by earning interest while we hold our assets. This is one of the wonderful things that crypto makes possible and highly accessible. Through the app we discussed in this video, we can earn up to 6.2% interest per year on our Bitcoin, in addition to how much the asset itself, the Bitcoin, might appreciate on its own. Each time we earn our interest, the next interest payment is calculated on our new balance with the interest we already earned. And that means that our returns will compound over time. So we want to focus on buying assets that put money into our pocket and have the ability to generate compounding returns over time. Great. Now let's look at the second principle. The second principle is to always have a plan. This is one that unfortunately very few investors follow. The first step to having a plan is to know yourself and your goals. That means knowing your time horizon and your risk tolerance, which we talked about in detail in the last video. It also means setting some tangible goals for your investment. Setting clear goals will help you stay rational, calm, and confident in the market. There are really two sets or levels of goals you should definitely have in mind as an investor. The first, highest level goal is your personal financial goal. What does a good retirement look like for you? How much passive income from your investments will you need to reach that retirement the way you want to? And how much risk can you take with the money you can afford to lose? Know what life-changing money looks like for you so that you can set goals around that. Then, when you meet your goals, you can feel secure in exiting some of your investments, taking some off the table, and enjoying your gains. The second type of goal is more specific. It's an investment level goal. That means you set a goal for each of your specific investments. For instance, if you're investing in Bitcoin, your goal might be to earn 60%. If Bitcoin increases by 60%, you will be comfortable selling some as you've met this goal for your investment. That said, it can be okay to change these types of investment level goals, provided it's done with careful reasoning and not spur of the moment. For example, if over time our investment thesis on Bitcoin changes, perhaps because we've learned some new information, we may, after some careful consideration, decide to increase or decrease our price target for the asset. This is an example of an acceptable way to change our investment level plan. On the other hand, if we're caught up in the euphoria of making money while the price is going up, and we raise our price target because we are craving more and scared of missing out if it goes higher, this is an example of when it's probably not a good idea to change our plan. The same could be true of changing our price target after getting caught up in fear or panic when the price is going down. A good shortcut to know whether we are changing our plan for a good or bad reason is to examine how much emotion is coming into play in our decision. In our last example, euphoria and fear are both highly emotional responses. The market tends to punish investors that make emotional decisions. After all, when you're overly emotional, you are much less likely to act rationally. Now, it's inevitable to feel these emotions at times of extreme market movements, and they always happen sooner or later. So, what can we do to make sure they don't affect our decision making? Well, I think the best way to combat this is by having a plan. A plan that we think out ahead of time when we are in an objective state that we know we can fall back on in times of uncertainty or high emotion. In other words, we can use our plan to help us stay in control when things get hairy. Another good way to combat emotional decisions is to learn to recognize these emotions when they inevitably come up. Everything we might feel when we're looking at our portfolio will generally boil down to one of two things. Either euphoria, when prices are going up and we're making a lot of money, and fear, when the market is going down and we're losing money. We can and we need to learn to identify these two states within ourselves. When we feel these emotions trying to influence us, we know it's not a good idea to be making decisions, especially that go against our plan during these times. The knowledge and recognition of our emotional state can prevent emotions from affecting our decision making. The third important principle of investing is to guard yourself from loss. This is critically important because you can follow all the other principles to a T, but if you mess up with security with this principle, you get scammed or you get hacked, you won't be successful. The most important thing in investing is security of your principal, i.e., what you put in. Always be on the lookout for scams, especially if your investment is good. There's always someone out there willing to take it from you, if given the chance. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. If something makes a guarantee or a promise of spectacular returns or get rich quick, you should probably stay away. Don't take shortcuts when doing research. Don't trust people who don't know or that don't have a good understanding of what they're talking about. If you're not sure, check their credentials. If you can't find any credentials on them, like a LinkedIn profile for instance, you must be conscious of the magnitude of risk this adds to the investment. In situations where you don't know who or what is actually behind the investment, it's probably best to just stay away. We also need to invest in security. This is true whether you're buying gold, stocks, in a brokerage account, or especially crypto assets. This subject is worth more discussion since there are some unique security best practices for crypto. For now, let's examine how we can apply those first two principles, investing in the right assets and having a sound plan, to the world of crypto.